In the Smash Brothers series, Duck Hunt can move his can around by hitting it with attacks. And a new addition in Ultimate was Duck Hunt's ability to hit his own can in the air. An important mechanic to understand about Duck Hunt's can is its ping direction. Depending on the last move that influenced it, will determine its right or left bearing. With certain setups, we can store knockback on the can and have its direction be triggered later. In this case, we're storing a nair and having an up tilt trigger the nair's direction, discounting whatever direction the up tilt would have sent it at. We can store knockback with almost any move in the game, and the way to do this is to ping can at the same time it gets hit. We can also disregard what side Duck Hunt is on when the can gets hit. It will trigger the original angle, so hitting it backwards is always possible. Duck Hunt can also trigger stored knockback with his projectiles, and even store the knockback of his projectiles. Opponents can trigger stored knockback as well. You can also trigger stored knockback with whiff hitboxes, or parts of animations that have no hitboxes attached. Whiff hitbox triggering was also present in Smash 4, and was one of the few ways to do stored knockback in Smash 4. It is also possible to store knockback with phantom hitting the can, without ever having needed to ping it. You can also get phantom hits in the air. The can will still register the damage of the back air and change its gravity accordingly. You can also store the knockback of opponent attacks. Including their projectiles. It is also possible for your opponents to phantom hit the can. This is Snake's normal down tilt angle. Notice how a property of can is that Duck Hunt can pass through it in the air. Yet aerial contact will explode the opponent. And if the opponent is the last one that hits the can, aerial contact will explode on Duck Hunt. Yet if the opponent hits it into the air, they are now allowed to pass through it. These properties together are a part of a mechanic called can ownership. Notice how the can failed to auto-explode on Duck Hunt, yet it will auto-explode on Falco. However, if Falco is the last person to hit the can, this property is now switched. Falco is now the owner of it. And in this last part, we switch twice. Can ownership is responsible for the tech called anchor can, where if the opponent owns can, they cannot influence it with their projectiles. However, physical moves and Duck Hunt pinging the can will disrupt the anchor. An anchor can will automatically store projectile knockback. The priority of the storage is whatever is the first projectile to hit the can after it is anchored. Another property of can ownership is opponents cannot reflect can if they own it. In this way, if Falco owns can by hitting it with a laser, he can no longer reflect it, and he can no longer influence the can with his laser again. It is important to note, however, that can ownership and stored knockback are two completely different mechanics. In this clip here, we store Wolf's knockback, but we should know that Wolf is the owner of this can right now. Yet in this second clip, after we ping can, we should note that the can ownership has returned to Duck Hunt, pings return ownership to Duck Hunt. But notice how in this clip, we ping the can, returning ownership to Duck Hunt, but pinging the can does not remove the original storage on it. And even when we store our own move, ping still carries over the stored knockback. This includes the pings of smash attacks. Both smash attack pings and regular pings can be chained together for ping carryover storage. Do you remember when I mentioned ping direction? This is can being hit to the left by laser. Therefore its ping direction has been influenced, and it will ping to the left. But if we get an initial storage, it has not been influenced, and will ping to the right. And it's still possible to get phantom hits with the projectile as well. Can ownership can be passed to any player in free-for-all. And Duck Hunt pinging it at any time in this sequence will return ownership to him. With Team Attack on, the mechanics will work the same as free-for-all. But Team Attack off is interesting. Now I can talk about team ownership. In this case, Rosalina can hit the can through Duck Hunt because they have dual ownership. But Rosalina hitting the can will not pass through Falco. Yet if Falco hits the can, he becomes the owner and will explode on Rosalina. Notice how Rosalina cannot gravity pull a friendly can. But it is possible to do so if the ownership is changed. Now let's put two people on the enemy team. Notice how no one on blue team can reflect can because they both own it. Team ownership also applies to anchor can. It even applies to enemy items and boss attacks. As long as ownership does not change, this can will never move or take damage from projectiles. There is a special type of ownership that happens when can is reflected. Duck Hunt will lose ownership, but he can still hit it back at opponents. A property of reflectors is Duck Hunt can no longer influence his can with neutral B. But if Duck Hunt hits reflected can into the air, it returns ownership to him. He can just no longer influence it with pings. This applies the same for opponents. No matter what happens, a reflected can will always cause a neutral explosion as soon as it touches the ground. Because of this, teammates can hurt each other with neutral can explosion with team attack off. After Falco reflects the can, any move that will hit it into the ground will cause a neutral explosion, allowing Falco to hurt his teammates. Remember that reflected cans are still owned, however, so Isabelle can't pocket her team's can. With all of this knowledge together, Duck Hunt's teammates can kill him in team attack off. Here we see Falco reflecting the can and claiming ownership of it. Because of this, Isabelle can now pocket can. Because reflected cans cause neutral explosions, Isabelle can now kill her teammates. At any point in time the can is enemy owned, Isabelle can pocket it, making it very hard for Duck Hunt to stop this. If you want to see how important these mechanics are, let's look at this match where Raito doesn't know very much about these techs. The can has stored a left angle from gyro, but Raito broke the anchor immediately. Laser triggers stored knockback, losing Raito this interaction and the set. Let's look at this situation recreated in Training Room. We have stored the knockback of gyro, but we do not ping can here as to not break the anchor. After adjusting the spacing, Rob shoots a fully charged laser downward into Duck Hunt's shield. In this situation, the can stays in place because we have retained the anchor can. Raito would have had enough frames to get a Nair or Fair out of shield, which could have changed the outcome of the set.